Good afternoon and welcome to Starbridge and welcome to our webinar. Before we get started, I just want to cover a few things. Here at Starbridge, our mission is to partner with people with disabilities, their families, and others who support them to realize fulfilling possibilities in education, employment, health, and community living, and to transform communities to include everyone. Just a few of the things that we do. We cover the greater Rochester and Finger Lakes area. We also have a grant that supports all of New York State except for New York City and Long Island. And just some of the few supports that we do is special education supports and advocacy, community living, fiscal intermediary, disability awareness and workshops and webinars just like we have today. If you want more information about Starbridge, our website is below, as well as our number for information, 585-546-1700. My name is Laura Arrington. I'm the Family and Youth Education Coordinator here at Starbridge, and I will be facilitating this webinar for you today. Before we get started, we always like to find out a little bit more about who's joining us. So I'm just going to launch a poll for us. So there's a poll and we're just asking, are you a parent or a family member, individual with a disability, education professional, human service provider, or other, and maybe what best represents you. I know a lot of us are parents and we're also professionals. So it looks like half of the people have voted. So I'm just going to give you another moment or two to go ahead and put that in, and then that helps our presenters just know who their audience is today. And they're still coming in. We're almost there. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Let me share the results with you so you can take a look. It looks like 38% are family and parents, 31% are educational professionals, and 31% are human service providers. So thank you so much for sharing that. And we just have one more. I'm going to launch this poll. And we're looking for the age of the family member or the person that you're working with who has a disability of the reason why you're sitting in today. And so we have 0 to 8 years of age, 9 to 14, 15 to 21, and over 21 years of age. Looks about half of the people have voted, so I'm just going to give you another moment to be able to put in that information. And it looks about everyone has voted. So let me close that poll, share the results with you. So it looks like 18% are 0 to 8 years of age, 36 are 9 to 14, 50 are 15 to 21, and 25% are over 21. So thank you so much. Let me hide that poll for you. I also want to just take a moment to thank Darcy and Carrie as well for coming with us today. They work for the Palmyra-Macedon School District, and I also want to say thank you to the Palmyra-Macedon School District for being a wonderful collaborator with us today and allowing them to share these wonderful professionals with us. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to them, and in just a moment, Darcy and Carrie will introduce themselves and they will bring up their PowerPoint, and I see your PowerPoint is up and we're ready to go.
All right, great. Welcome. We are excited to be here today to talk about executive function strategies. My name is Darcy Bernitt, and I am an instructional coach for special education at the Palmyra-Macedon School District.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Titlow, and I'm a speech-language pathologist in the middle school and high school at Palmyra-Macedon School District. So we want to mention that there is that note sheet with key concepts. Again, it's optional. If it is something that you would find helpful for jotting some notes down from today's presentation, please feel free. We want to start by thinking about what does executive function look like in everyday life?
When I used to think about executive function, I used to think it was about organizing space, like maybe a desk or a closet or a binder, a locker, but it is so much more than that. Let's think about a grocery store. Let's pretend I have 5 or 6 items to run in and grab. Before I even enter the grocery store, I sit in my car and set my plan in my head. I have used my quick list to move through the entire store. Then I go into the store and execute my plan in an efficient manner. It is so much better than running into the store, grabbing cucumbers, then milk, and oh yeah, back to produce because I forgot bananas. It saves so much time. So executive function truly is the ability to plan.
Imagine a delicious homemade chocolate chip cookie, fresh and warm right out of the oven. How difficult is it to resist eating one or even 3 of these delicious cookies? When I think of cookies, it is hard not to think of a certain lovable blue friend from childhood. Cookie Monster is a character who shows what it is like to be a young child when self-regulation hasn't developed quite yet. However, as we progress in our executive function development, we are able to use the self-talk in our brain to reason through when and how to do something, including eating cookies. Executive function is the ability to plan, but it is also the ability to control our impulses and self-regulate in our day-to-day lives.
You are about to view 2 video clips. The first video is Dr. Russell Barkley, a psychiatrist whose work includes ADHD as well as executive function. In this particular clip, he describes what executive function is. The second video is Sarah Ward, a speech pathologist whose particular interest is in the assessment and treatment of executive function deficits. She describes how to tell if a child struggles with executive function. So basically, the first one is the definition, what is executive function, and the second video is about signs of how to tell when someone is challenged by poor executive function skills.
The latest thinking on ADHD includes the topic of executive functioning as being related to ADHD and possibly actually being the core functions or deficits in the disorder. Now, we can think of the executive functions simply as those capacities for self-control that allow us to sustain action and problem solving toward a goal. So it's goal-directed problem solving and goal-directed persistence. Now, there are at least 5 of these executive functions that appear to be involved in self-regulation, and research suggests that most of them, and probably all of them, are implicated in the disorder. The first of these is the ability to inhibit your behavior, to stop what you're doing in order to allow the other executive functions to be able to take over and guide your behavior toward the future. The second is the ability to use visual imagery, often called nonverbal working memory. Humans have the ability to hold images in mind about what they are proposing to do, and they use those images as mental maps to guide their behavior toward the intended target, and also to remember the sequence of steps that's necessary to accomplish that goal or that task. Out of this executive ability also comes our sense of hindsight, foresight, and overall our subjective sense of time. So we would expect all of these to be impaired by the disorder, and so they seem to be. The third executive ability is the ability to talk to yourself in your mind as a form of self-guidance. From sunup to sundown, all of our waking moments include a voice in our head that we use not just to converse with ourselves, but also to give ourselves instructions and even to question ourselves when we face a novel situation or a problem. This mind's voice is often called verbal working memory, and it's another form of self-control that humans use to guide behavior over time to accomplish goals. Now, the fourth executive ability is the ability to control our own emotions and with it, our motivations. It is out of here that we get emotional self-control, the ability to inhibit strong emotion that's being elicited by things around us and to moderate those emotions so that they're more in keeping with our long-term welfare and our long-term goals. And then finally, there is the ability to plan and problem solve. This executive function involves mental play, the ability to manipulate information in mind in order to discover novel combinations that might serve to overcome obstacles toward our goals and allow us to accomplish our tasks and goals as we aim our behavior toward the future. These 5 executive functions by adulthood serve as a set of mind tools, a veritable Swiss Army knife of mental faculties that allow people to regulate their own behavior over time for their own long-term welfare.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming to our school. We're really excited to have you here. We are seeing more students come to Delaware Valley that have executive function difficulties, and the teachers are working hard to address it in the classroom. As a parent, how does a parent know when a student has, or when their child has, an executive function difficulty? What are the red flags?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, we're seeing a rise in students with executive function challenges. So I always think of executive function as being that skill that allows you to manage yourself and your space and your time and your materials. And so holding on to those as the features are some good ideas around red flags. So students who often just don't have their materials. So when you say it's time for lacrosse and they still need to be prompted through, okay, you need your stick. Okay, you need your protective pads. Or when you say, oh, get ready for class today, and they're still needing the prompt, do you have your notebook? Do you have your book? Did you put your homework back? Did you put your homework folder back in? Where it's lots of prompting and cueing. They can't find materials. Same thing with time. Students who red flags, they just don't have a sense of the awareness of time. So when you say we're leaving in 10 minutes, you can tell they don't feel what 10 minutes is like. So they may not increase their pace or rush. And then they may go from being unhurried to all of a sudden, oh my gosh, and in a panic mode. And I think that's a big one. And also students who are very disorganized in space, not in terms of materials, but they're what we call the zigzaggers. So it's the student who needs to get ready, and instead of going into their bedroom and doing all the bedroom activities, I'm putting on my shorts and t-shirt for baseball practice, getting my socks and my shoes, then I'm going into the bathroom to put my hair in a ponytail and brush my teeth and go to the bathroom. These kids zigzag. They go downstairs and they get an apple. They go into the bathroom and brush their teeth. They go back downstairs and put the bat in the bag. They go back upstairs and get their sneakers. They go back downstairs and then they forget they need to go upstairs, and they're just disorganized in their movements through space. So those can be some really big red flags.
Right. Are there any different type of red flags that a teacher will see in the classroom?
I think in a classroom it's the same but different. So it's the student who shows up who does not have the materials. It's the teacher who says, let's get ready for class, and the student with good executive function moves through the classroom in an efficient manner to gather all the materials and sits down and gets started. Whereas the student with executive dysfunction may go and get a pen from their backpack and sit down, and then they need to pop back up and go get the textbook, and then they sit down, and then they forgot the worksheet, so they need to pop up and go get the worksheet and sit back down. So there's this disorganization of, for the amount of time that I have to be prepared and how I'm going to move through that space to efficiently gather those items in that amount of time, that's where we see a little bit of a challenge. And I think for teachers too, it's over the course of time. So it's the student who in a classroom has learned how to do a particular math or science formula, and they go, got it, yep, I get it. And they get home and they go, don't got it. And they're not sure of what their resources are. Or the student but gets back the next day and didn't turn the homework in. And sometimes those students, the homework is finished and it's in their backpack, they can't find it, or they did it and it's left at home on the dining room table, or they didn't finish it because they didn't have a sense of what time and when it was due. So again, from a big picture, it's organizing your sense in what are my materials, what space am I moving to that I need to manage those materials in, and what's my amount of time to manage them.
Executive function is really about your ability to imagine and play out a movie in your mind of how the future is going to go. Now, so let's define future. Future simply is what is going to happen next. It doesn't have to be 4 years from now. It could be 5 minutes from now. Just like planning the grocery store items to run in and get, or planning your afternoon errands, or being ready to leave the house. We take these future events and actually play out a movie in our minds, picture them in our head. It's actually crazy how much I do this. I visualize myself doing my plan before I actually do it, all day long. I left for work the other day and was driving down my street when I realized I forgot my laptop. So I turned around to go back and get it. As I was driving, I pictured myself running in my house, through the kitchen, into my family room to retrieve my laptop from the side of my couch. Then, when I did it, I was quick and efficient because it was already in my mind. I even did a plan B version. If it wasn't there, I would beeline it to the dining room because that is the other place I keep it. Again, executive function is the ability to imagine and play out a movie of how the future should go. I know this will be somewhat of a shock, but sometimes the way we see the future and the way a child sees it could be very different. So are you ready for school? So our version of ready can be very different than a child's version of ready. We are going to present you a variety of situations that show the difference between a child's idea of ready and our idea of ready. Morning time can be somewhat chaotic. You may have experienced prompting your kids with, get ready, come on, eat your breakfast, are you ready, do you have your lunch, get your shoes on. And their version is the picture you see in front of you. Yeah, Mom, I'm ready for school. Your version. As you can see, the coat is on, boots are on, and backpack packed. And this is ready. This is what you were picturing as ready. A great strategy for building this executive function is to take a picture of a child ready for school, post it where they can see it, and then say, match the picture. This takes away the adult prompting and encourages the child to be more independent. For younger children, it can be a photo on a luggage tag on their book bag or taped to the door. For older children, it could be a photo on their phone or device. Same but different for season. So if the picture with the book bag, it may be maybe they have flip-flops on because it's spring and no coat. So similar to being ready, but you don't need the same materials exactly. The picture on the right is a sports bag, field hockey in particular. So this is a great strategy when you have your book bag and you have the books and your lunch and your water bottle, but then you also have a sport after school. So take a picture of the items needed to go into that book bag to make sure that they're ready and prepared after school, so you're not getting phone calls home like, oh, I forgot my shin guards, I forgot my water bottle. So it just kind of takes all that off the list, and instead of providing a checklist, they have this visual image to quickly reference, to quickly look at, so they can match the picture and make sure they have all the items they need and are actually ready to leave for school. Next photo, are you ready for bed? So this picture may look familiar to those of you maybe with teenagers. Their laptop in bed, phone out, maybe watching Netflix, texting friends. So this is a typical scene unless you are wanting them ready for bed, because clearly she is not. But what does ready for bed look like? In her mind, yeah, she's ready. Yeah, like I'm ready for bed. My typical mom mode would have me prompting every step of the way. Brush your teeth, get your PJs on. Did you wash your face? We are doing the planning and the managing time for them. Instead, a more effective strategy would be to have them tell me your bedtime plan. This takes away the adult prompting and thinking and moves it to the child. Here's an example.
Okay, tell me your plan. I gotta put my laptop away, I gotta go to the bathroom, I gotta brush my teeth, I gotta wash my face, I gotta come back in here, put my pajamas on, and get in bed.
As you can see, she was pointing and miming the actions. This helps her imagine the future events in an efficient manner. Tell me your plan. Talk to me about your plan. Ask the questions that help the child create the imagination, create and plan the time. How do you see yourself ready to go? If your show is on at 8, what does the evening look like? Just reframing your language can help the child build those executive function skills. What will your desk look like when you are ready for math? So here's a classroom example of what ready could look like. So a good strategy from Sarah Ward is model desk. It's a great ready strategy for the classroom. You have a desk where everyone can see it with that the student needs for the next class. Students should match the desk to be ready for the next class. It is nice to have the same reference point every time so a child is not trying to figure out where to look, who to copy. If you do not have time to prep the desk before the next class, do it right in front of them. It is nice to see what done should look like before class starts.
And here are 2 pictures that my students took in the laundry area of our high school. The students then used the Sketch app to modify the pictures with words and arrows. After printing and laminating the pictures, we posted them above the washer and dryer. These visuals have changed the way the students do the laundry. Rather than being prompt dependent, They use these visuals to match the picture and independently complete the laundry in their life skills class. Sometimes teachers have a particular way that they expect an area to be cleaned. That is probably true for families at home as well. Here are a few examples of what the done is supposed to look like after cleaning. A caddy with materials put away in separate sections, and a sink that is free of dishes, food, and dirty dishcloths. In both cases, students thought that what they were doing was cleaning up, but the teachers had a different picture in their minds of what cleaned up actually looked like. With the picture, students notice the features and then make a plan to match the done. So in the sink photo in particular, it had been a source of tension throughout the year. This space is shared by a teacher and it is her office, and the students would consistently leave those dirty dishes and dirty dishcloths in there. And even after she had prompted, the sink needs to be cleaned up. Yep, it's cleaned up, they would say. And so we finally took this photo, and right away, the difference was remarkable. We posted that photo right above the sink, and they're able to match that photo. And I think it has relieved the tension for everyone, because that teacher isn't having to prompt and feel frustrated by that. And they're not, as teens, feeling like, oh, I'm being nagged. And it just made life easier for everyone.
So the picture on the right in the kitchen is my kitchen at home, and my teenage children can make the kitchen look like a hurricane came through it. And even if I say pick up please, the effort is there, but there are things that are left out. My version and their version of what clean looks like is different. One day my 18-year-old son was home making a big mess in the kitchen, so I sent him a picture of our clean kitchen with the caption, "The kitchen should look like this when you are done." Now we have the same image of what it should look like, and it really helped the whole process. So when I walked in the door, things were not on the counters like usual, and things were put in the dishwasher. So it's crazy how just this one simple visual can really help the whole process.
Sometimes during certain tasks, such as writing, a student may say, "I'm done," prematurely. Their relief can quickly change to frustration when they are told that they are not yet done. By showing an example of what the length of an assignment looks like, they can monitor the quantity that they produce more accurately. This can be used for any quantity of writing work. I have seen high school teachers use this to show the expected length of written responses for tests, multi-page essays, and slide presentations. The second photo is one that my students took and modified using the Sketch app. This group of students ran a pet store at school with dog treats and cat toys. When making the cat toys, students tended to say they were done before they actually were. By using this visual, the students were able to check the quantity of felt strands they used as well as the quality of their work more independently.
So how can we help students see time? This time horizon visual represents how far people can see and plan into the future by age groups. So if you look at this, we have 2 years old, they want it now. They want their cookie now, they want their toy now, they want to go outside now. And as you go up in age, the time horizon expands. So 3 to 5-year-olds can see about 5 to 20 minutes into the future. First grade, several hours. Third grade, 8 to 12 hours. Now, when I stop here, I think about a first grade classroom when I see like a day of calendar events. So what they're doing throughout the day, where they can only see a few hours into their day. So it's kind of nice to go and revisit those things throughout the day. So it's not just one and done in the morning meeting at the beginning of the day. Third grader can typically see 8 to 12 hours. 12 to 16-year-olds, 2 to 3 days. So these are some of our high schoolers. And 17 to 23-year-olds, 2 to 3 weeks, which is some of our high schoolers and college students. So think about our high school kids here. We hand them projects that are due in 3 weeks. When you're looking at a typical developing executive function kid can see it 2 to 3 days in advance. It makes sense that they do not start until 3 days before it's actually due. Same for a college syllabus. Professors hand that out in the beginning of the 4 months, and they say, here's everything, here's when it's due, but the ability to plan is 2 to 3 weeks in a typical time frame. And if you add an executive function disorder, you're going back to days or possibly hours for some of our kids.
So here is another clip from Dr. Barkley that relates to the spatial temporal window.
ADHD is not an attention disorder, it's a blindness to the future. It is a myopia to the impending future events. You are nearsighted in time, which means that the child and adult with ADHD are going to wait until the future is imminent. And then they will try to deal with it. But as long as the future stays out there, I don't have to deal with that. The closer it gets, the more I'm going to organize toward it. But I can't really do much about it until it's the 11th hour. And then I will race around, try to slap things together in a hapdash manner to get it done. ADHD creates a nearsightedness to time so that the person with the disorder cannot organize to the delayed future, but only to the imminent future. And so everything in life becomes a crisis. But the crisis was avoidable, and no one has any patience with this because they see this as a moral failing. You could have chosen to get ready, but you didn't. It is phrased as a form of laziness, this layabout, ne'er-do-well, carefree, careless attitude that you could change if you wanted to, right? But we know it as the executive failure it really is. This disorder precludes you from organizing across time. So you live in the moment, and you cannot organize very large, hierarchically sequenced behavior across time. It means that future-directed behavior is intentional behavior, which means ADD is actually IDD, intention deficit disorder. I don't seem to be able to accomplish most of the things I intended to do. You can call that a short attention span, but I think intention deficit disorder captures it much better. Now, the frontal lobes, the executive system is where you take what you know and you apply it in your daily life. It is not where you know something, it is where you use what you know. The back part of the brain acquires knowledge. The front part of the brain puts it in play. ADHD has separated these two like a meat cleaver. So it really doesn't matter what you know. You can't use it as effectively as other people can. ADHD is a performance disorder. You can't perform the things you know how to do. It is not a knowledge disorder. Most people with ADHD know about as much as anybody else from their neighborhood with their education in that school at that age, but they can't use it, not to anywhere near the degree of effectiveness of others. So people with ADHD know what to do, but they can't do what they know. One of the things we have known in neuropsychology is that if you wish to treat an executive disorder, a performance disorder, the only way to treat it is to change the point of performance. The point of performance is the place out there in life where you should be using this knowledge. And for some reason, you can't seem to do it. So all treatment must be at the point of performance. And if it's not, it won't work. No amount of treatment done away from that place will solve that problem. Only changing that place will solve that problem. You have to restructure the environment to help them show what they know. So what does this mean? It means that teaching skills is a waste of time because they won't be used. Skills are knowledge, and these people already have most of the skills anyway. But even if you teach them new ones, the likelihood that they will get implemented is pretty slim. I can hand any adult a list of time management recommendations, and I can guarantee you that most of them will never get used. In fact, the paper will be lost on the way home because it will blow up under the front seat of the car, and then you'll forget that it's there. Or if you do remember that it's there, you'll tape it to the refrigerator, but you won't look at it. And if you do, you'll say, you know, I really should be doing those things. These are really cool things. This is what I really need help with. And then you'll just go about behaving impulsively anyway. And you'll come back and then say, you know, Dr. Barkley, those were great ideas. Did you do them? Well, I'm working on it. Boy, I find that hard to, you see what I'm talking about? This is not a knowledge disorder. It never was. It's a problem with using what you know. And no sheet of paper corrects your performance disorder.
So helping students see time is vital, especially when they have, as Dr. Barkley describes, a blindness to the future. Sarah Ward and Kristen Jacobson have described the need for two types of clocks in a child's environment. The first clock is a wall clock, and it should be analog and have numbers rather than Roman numerals. The height should be eye level. A wall clock helps children tell the hour. The second type of clock is a work clock. Like a wall clock, a work clock should be analog and have numbers rather than Roman numerals. It should be placed near a workspace. A work clock helps children tell the minute. Sarah and Kristen use a strategy to make time visible. Using dry erase markers and a work clock with a glass face, a child can shade in the volume of work time. For older students, Sarah and Kristen have developed 360-degree time tracker. It also shades the volume of work time. In some classrooms, you may see the use of a digital timer. Unlike a work clock, a student cannot see the volume of time, the sweep of time, or the time that has elapsed in a visual way. And I find that often when I go into classrooms and a digital timer is in place, it actually increases the anxiety that a child has about completing a task. They see that representation of numbers ticking away, but they can't really feel it. And because it seems unknown, it can sometimes create anxiety in certain children. So here is one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite people, Mr. Fred Rogers. He said, "Providing a framework doesn't take away children's individuality. In fact, structure generally helps them to be more free because it provides boundaries. It's like a fence that offers security for what can happen inside the enclosure." This picture shows one of my private clients who I meet with at the public library. He is 7. He cannot yet tell time, but he can use a work clock. A work clock shows him the volume of time for a task. Before he started using a work clock for nighttime reading for school, he would read for a few moments and then ask his mom if he was done yet. He didn't know what 20 minutes of reading looked like or felt like. He also uses his work clock for the rest of his homework. If you look closely at this picture, you will see his future picture on his clock. Kisses from mom and some TV time. That is exactly what happened at the end of that work time on that evening. When completing his morning routine, his mom used to tell him what to do as he was not initiating the tasks independently. Now he is able to complete all of the parts of his morning routine and have time left over for free time. At one point, he came to one of our sessions and described how he had grouped the morning tasks in a different way to make the morning routine more efficient. What a great example of shifting and flexing. Now mom is able to drink a cup of coffee while he gets ready independently and on time. They are both much happier about how their morning time goes. At times during our sessions at the library, he thinks of things that he would like to do and asks to do them, looking at a book, asking a question at the library help desk, looking to see what the movie of the day is for the children's program. And rather than saying no, I say, "Show me on our work clock when you can do that." And after thinking, he smiles and points to the time that comes after our shaded work time. His answer often sounds like, "Oh yeah, I can do it then, when you and mom are having your talk time." This student's experience with the work clock reminds me of the quote by Fred Rogers, because I do think that providing this framework of visual time has provided him more freedom of what he can do within work time and outside of work time.
So good news, we can build executive function skills. There are many ways to build executive function in kids. In fact, it is probably many things you already do. When children are young, they build executive function skills through imaginary play. House, playing superheroes, animals at the zoo. They build it by making a future plan. They create and imagine the character, setting, plot. They use gestures. Crafts are another great tool because they have to plan what they need to get ready and complete the craft. Oftentimes, they have a picture of what the done craft looks like, which gives them the visual image to work from.
Some other examples represented on this screen, you'll see the salsa and the salsa garden sign. So I work in a summer program and we work specifically on executive function skills. And the students created a salsa garden. They started with what does done look like, a hot, spicy recipe that they wanted to create, We went to the garden center and chose plants. They planned the entire task of choosing the plants, planting the plants, taking care of the plants, and eventually reaching that done of we have our spicy salsa. So projects can be wonderful. There are some great resources out there, Klutz books. They offer them for students in a variety of ages. More recently, they have created younger materials, and this is one of them. It's the Handshake book. And again, you can see what done looks like. A student can plan through what do I need to do and talk through that and create that picture. Also, Legos can be a wonderful resource. This image is from the Lego game. And again, they see what does done look like, what are the steps, and what do I need to actually accomplish this. Sarah Ward and Kristen Jacobson have explored the use of gestures with children who have difficulty with executive function. Teaching the use of gesture incorporates a concept we have talked about previously in our webinar today. When gesturing, a child needs to picture what something will look like in his head and use that ability to play out in his mind how something will happen before it actually does. Regarding gestures, Sarah Ward has said, gestures are really just an outgrowth of how we might mentally simulate performing activities. Gestures give life to our mental scratch pads, allowing us to perform actions with our hands before we have to do them in real life, or before we have thought these activities all the way through to put them into words. Gesture helps infuse memories with an emotional charge that makes them last. Sarah has also noted that gesture practice is different than charades, and gestures must be presented in pairs or groups and close together for the mental imagery. Some contrasting examples that she provides in pairs are having a student gesture eating an ice cream cone versus a sundae, or gesture a cat versus a dog. The big idea here is that you want a child to think about the features. How are the two actions or items the same but different? Practicing gestures in this way doesn't have to be a special event. Everyday moments like riding in the car or waiting in line can provide an opportunity to practice gesture. Recently, one of my middle school therapy groups was using the cards from the game Gestures for some practice in gesture. One 8th grade student received the word climb as his prompt. To watch him was an eye-opening experience. His climbing movements were imprecise. It was evident from watching him that he could not picture what it looked like to climb and what he looked like when climbing. That day in therapy, we used Sarah and Kristen's technique and presented climbing as a categorical term. I grouped the following and said, show me, I am climbing the ladder. I am climbing the rope. I am climbing the tree. I am climbing the stairs. In the picture on this slide, you will see another one of my students. He is the same 7-year-old that you saw earlier who has become a work clock all-star. When we started working together, he had been experiencing some difficulty with his routine at school. When his mom and I asked him to gesture his school routine, it was evident that he was deleting important steps. His mom took this photo when we needed some additional visuals to scaffold his gesture practice. He practiced his school routine and imagined the steps while gesturing and talking through each step using self-directed language. I will hang up my bag and then take off my coat. I will hang my coat on the hook. A tip that I have found useful when gesturing with students in another location than the action happens is to have them gesture the layout of the space first to help orient both of you. I will stand alongside the student and have him point out key features like the door, the whiteboard, the cubbies, etc. If you are interested in learning more about the use of gestures, here's an article by Claudia Wallace that you may want to read.
Job talk is a great strategy for home or school. Here are a few examples of what job talk is. So being a backpacker instead of go pack your bag, being a money counter, we talk about writers and readers in class, a plant waterer, a line leader, a summarizer, a teeth brusher. By changing that language, we represent the act of doing. What does it look like? Imagining the future. By turning the action into a job and giving the child a job title. It develops nonverbal working memory. What will I look like? It creates immediate structure for the child. It accesses procedural memory. How am I moving in my space? It limits emotional reactions, and it provides a sense of time boundaries with a visualized done for open-ended tasks. Read versus summarizer. Gestures and job talk can work together. I was in a 3rd grade classroom and the teacher asked the student to be a bag packer. He had to point to the bag and mime the action of putting his items in it. It helps the child to play out the future before executing, and it only takes about 30 seconds. If you would like to learn more about job talk, check out the presentation by Sarah Ward. It is about an hour long.
Chad has several helpful articles. Here are 2 that may be of interest to you after participating in the webinar today. The authors have tips regarding executive function. For example, Dr. Russell Barkley provides concrete ways a student can fill his or her executive function fuel tank, such as routine physical exercise, taking medication, relaxing breaks periodically, and so on.
Think about how we rely on visuals for so many things like recipes and crafts. We always like to see what done looks like before we even begin. I love Pinterest and love to build boards to visualize my plan in my home, my classroom, landscaping. The bottom right-hand corner, we were redoing my daughter's bedroom, so I just pinned tons of visual ideas to help me see it through. Recipes, I feel like so many recipes right now have videos attached to them. I love to watch the whole video before I actually go and make the meal. It just gives me a visual image, helps me plan my future, and it makes everything much easier. For many years, I have given kids checklists and broken down verbal directions one step at a time. All good intentions and sometimes successful, but never realized how powerful visual image can be in helping children with their executive function skills. It helps them to be less prompt dependent by assisting them in creating that future image.
Michelle Garcia Winner once said, "Allow silence so that a child can fill that space with his or her own thoughts." It seems a bit strange as a speech-language pathologist for me to say what I am about to say, but one thing that I have noticed when working with teachers, aides, parents, and even other speech-language pathologists is our tendency to talk too much to children when what they really need is less language. By allowing children the gift of silence to formulate their own ideas after a key prompt such as, "Tell me your plan," or "What do you think that will look like?" is empowering. Here are the resources that we used to create this presentation.
And what questions do you have? We are done.
Great, thank you so much. Before we get started on the questions, and now is your time to start typing in questions, and we do have a few, but go ahead and feel free to type those in. I want to remind everyone, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you expand the orange arrow, you can click on handouts, and that's where you will have access to the PowerPoint. So you can see the resources that are in there, as well as there's a handout to go along with that. I also want to take another moment to thank the Palmyra-Macedon School District for collaborating on this webinar. So I'm ready to start taking questions, so I'm going to get started. Oh, and one more thing before we start on questions. I want to remind everyone that here at Starbridge, on November 18th, we will be bringing in Sarah Ward. For those of you who need continuing education credits, we will be offering those as well. It's not on our calendar yet, but please keep checking back here at Starbridge. And as soon as it's out there, you can sign up for that. So before we, I have some questions coming in. One person asked, do you have any recommendations on where to post these visuals?
I guess it depends on what you're posting. So I've seen it with a child leaving the house, the picture of ready for school is like right on the door before they leave, or right in the area their coat and their boots are, so they can match the picture in that area. I've also seen visual images for when kids come into the classroom and there's like steps to get ready for the day, and there's visual pictures on a big poster board so that they can reference the steps to get ready.
I think in the environment that it actually happens is most powerful. So if it's loading the dishwasher, right next to that dishwasher, like we said with the laundry, right there next to the laundry, I think that can be most effective.
Great, thank you. Is the Sketch app free?
To my recollection, it is. I know that sometimes apps change over time. When I downloaded it, at that point, it was free.
Great. How do I know if it's really executive functioning or my child just doesn't want to clean the kitchen? That's $1 million question.
It's $1 million question. And, you know, I have a child at home that has good executive function skills, but sometimes I use these strategies because it helps just to be on the same page with things. And sometimes it takes the behavior out, or it takes them not wanting to do something out, because now we have the same image of what should be done. I think you go back to the Sarah Ward video where she explained like a child with poor executive function skills, they zigzag or they pop up a lot in classroom because they don't have that ability to plan and get all the materials at once. Sarah Ward also talked about like executive function and ADHD are so similar that ADHD was almost renamed as an executive function disability, but for medical reasons, it wasn't. So I kind of look at it, all kind of goes together, and some of these strategies cannot hurt whether your child has it or not.
Mm-hmm. And I think to Ross Green, he has this great quote, and he talks about students, and he says, he would if he could, or she would if she could, and that students bring to the table a variety of skills, and there are certain things at times that prevent them from showing what they can do. And it's a complex question, but I think it's one, especially if you're having some concerns, worth talking to pediatrician or doctor further about your concerns.
Great, thanks. This one says, my child says I don't have enough time to complete the homework. I think that they just don't know how to do the homework. Do you have any suggestions?
We don't have enough time.
So that's interesting. I think that is a common statement among students. I've heard it in younger children, and I also hear it in teens. I think that sometimes what they're saying is that they don't feel like they have enough time, that they haven't felt time going by, sweeping past them. And I think that they can get lost in time, if you will. There are certain things that rob their time. And I highly encourage anyone who's able to listen to Sarah Ward's presentation in November. She has so many wonderful resources. But one of the things she talks about is time robbers, and how there are certain things that actually steal students' time, and having them become more aware of those moments. Because I think especially things like technology, it can just be like a vortex in a way, and time will tick by and a student isn't aware that that's happening. I think that work clock and having students actually see that sweep and seeing like, oh my goodness, half of my time is gone and I need to start, or I need to quicken my pace, because they've been doing so many other things. Their brain has been in another place that they don't realize, wow, time is really going by.
Great, thank you. The next question is, how do you know where to start, especially for students that seem completely lost?
I feel like that's a really good question. I feel like sometimes you can overdo the whole picture strategy if you're doing it all day long for a student that seems lost for a good portion of their day. My recommendation would be to pick a time during the day that seems more critical maybe than other times. And so maybe it's the morning routine, or maybe it's the homework routine at the end when the child comes home from school, and providing those strategies and working on those strategies and doing it with fidelity. So not just trying it here or there, but being consistent, whether you're using a word clock, or being consistent whether you're referencing the visual image, or maybe it's every time when they come home from school, it's tell me your after school plan, and then you help visually go through that with your child. So it's picking it at critical times of the day and then building on that through all day. You can't attack everything at once, whether the students in school or at home. Teachers go through the same thing. Like, why can't help them read or do like we try to pick these small moments to build on those strategies to keep them going.
Yes,
Great.
and I think you could carry one moment over to another and talk about how this moment is same but different as another. And once you gain ground in one area, it might help you gain some ground in another area.
Yes, quicker.
Perfect. Someone is asking if you could just go back and show the reference pages just a little bit longer. I also want to remind you that's in your PowerPoint handout, but we're more than happy to show that. And we'll just keep this on. We'll keep this on for a second. I'll ask the next question, then we'll move back to the other part of the reference page, and then we'll go back to the final page. But thank you for that. That's very helpful. Someone says, thank you. This was fantastic. I am a parent of an incoming fourth grader. How do you suggest I talk to his teacher about utilizing some of these strategies?
That's a great question. I think that one way to talk about it might be to start talking about what you see as a difficulty for him. Just maybe using it almost as a problem-solving type of format, and almost as a team to say, I've noticed that struggles here and here, and I attended this webinar and I've heard about this strategy. I'm wondering what we can do together to work together to try some different things to support those skills within the classroom.
Or if you're finding that you try one of these strategies at home this summer and they're working really well, I mean, as a teacher, as a classroom teacher, I would have loved for a parent to say, this is what has been working at home. Here's some ideas that maybe could help him in the classroom. Wonderful, that's awesome. And sharing what's working is also a great strategy. But I like that team approach. I like that we're all in this together approach, and kind of going with that route.
Great, thank you. The next question, do you find that visual images help middle and high school students, or do you find teens think it's, quote unquote, too young for them?
I work with students in grades 6 all the way up through age 21. And I've sat in a lot of different classrooms, and I sat in a 12th grade English class this year. And it was a small group, and the students were struggling in creating a presentation, a slide presentation, wondering what should go on it, what it should look like. And the teacher had handed out a very verbal representation of what they should do. It looked like a page with a lot of text on it. And sometimes students have difficulty kind of breaking that down and really getting that picture of what it's supposed to look like. So I went to the teacher during a break and I said, I wonder if you have any examples from previous years. And as 12th graders are, sometimes they can seem a little less than enthused about certain things, and I noticed that so much of the attention popped up when she brought that example from a previous year. They were all tuned in and noticing, okay, and you could just see it, that they were starting to visualize for their own presentations. And it doesn't have to be a big event, really. She chose 3 key ones and she went through the slides, and they just had a quick discussion about, what did this previous student do that was meeting the expectations, and maybe what did they not do. And I think that it caused more engagement than just looking at the page of text that described the assignment.
And with the mobile devices, the visual images are so much more private. You're not putting it out for everyone to see. So it's personal for our older kids. They can just bring it up on their phone and match the picture to get ready for class or sports or whatever they're looking to work. Maybe they have to dress a certain way for work and they want to make sure they have everything. So I think it's private and personal. And I think it's a great resource.
Great, thank you. Next question, is there an age at which these skills can no longer be taught, or does the plasticity of the brain allow for growth at any age?
I think that's a great question. When I think about the development of executive function, it does go through into adulthood. And I like to think that the brain can keep developing. And I think about those people who have lost skills. I've worked with adults before as a speech language pathologist. Maybe they've lost skills due to brain injury or stroke. but that with time and with very specific work, that people can improve and develop and gain things that they need to. So I do think that people can grow throughout life. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. The next one is about sharing this webinar with others, and to let you know that we will have this archived on the Starbridge website. It takes about 6 weeks. We have to send anything that's on our website has to be closed captioned. You can share this with your friends, your child's teachers, whoever you want to, and then again, keep looking back for November 14th or 18th at the end of this month. And I know just from working with Darcy and Carrie that a lot of educators really love Sarah Ward. So I think it would be something of great interest, and I think it's something that will fill up fast. So you're almost doing people a favor by letting them know. So thank you for that. After that, the next one is, you mentioned there's an increase in executive functions disorder. Do you know why, or do you think it's just better diagnosis of it?
I don't know. That's a good one. I don't know that I can answer that through research based.
Do you feel that executive function, is it not just ADHD? Do you feel that it touches other disabilities like autism and learning disabilities as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I think of Michelle Winner and her work with social thinking with children with autism, and she references Sarah Ward's work a lot in her presentations. I think they go hand in hand with all those skills that we try to build in our kids, and we see a lot more of that truly in our younger kids too.
And I think the way that students experience childhood now might be slightly different than the way people have experienced childhood in others. Same, but different. I think that there is so much that can be accessed on demand. It isn't about planning to watch a TV show that's only on at a certain time. Something can be pulled up on Netflix or Hulu, and it changes the way students experience time. And it almost creates just a different way, a different approach of how they think about time. And when you listen to Sarah Ward talk, you'll hear her talk about that fixed time and flexible time. And I think students sometimes walk away from these experiences of having everything on demand, of thinking that time is flexible. No problem, that deadline, I'll get to it, no problem. Instead of realizing that time in certain situations is fixed. And then when that deadline happens and maybe there's a consequence, and I just mean like a natural consequence that goes with that of not having something in on time, it's almost like they feel affronted, like, what? You know, because what they've learned throughout is that time is flexible. Yep. And so learning that skill of time is fixed, like I have to be to my job on time, I have to turn this important document in on time. It really is an important life skill that they learn.
Great, thank you. This is one of our last questions, so thank you so much. And this one is a great question. How do you explain executive function to a child who has it so they understand it in a positive way and want to work towards success?
You know, I find that when I'm explaining difficulty, I'll say to students of a variety of ages, I might say, there are certain things that your brain makes easy for you, and there are certain things that your brain makes harder for you. It just is. It just like everyone, and I will try to be very vulnerable myself in that moment. I talk about what my brain makes hard for me. For example, athletic things. That is not something I am good at. And we talk about just we as individuals, that's a natural part of life. And I'll use that to lead into talking about how certain skills or certain moments might be challenging. And I try to provide certain examples that they might be able to identify with to say, oh yeah, you know, that is kind of tough for me. Or, you know what, I do feel like people are you know, for my teens, oh, they're nagging me all the time to get started or to turn something in. And then we talk about it more in like a collaborative team approach. Okay, so what can we do about this? How can we make this more comfortable, easier for you so that you don't feel that discomfort all the time?
I saw something cool in the classroom. It was intermediate school classroom, and the teacher, they were washing their hands and they were going to get lined up for lunch, and they were just all over the place. They're thinking, they're planning. The kids weren't really lining up, and the teacher said to them, he's like, remember yesterday when we got stuck behind Mr. Jones's class and it took us longer to get to the lunch line? And they were like, yeah. He's like, how did that feel? And they're like, not good. I didn't like that. And they're like, okay, so now we need to plan and we need to move in an efficient manner. So they just remembering that feeling of being late to lunch and being stuck behind this other class helped them to move forward quickly in purpose to get ready for lunch. And I do this even with my 18-year-old. I'll say, or remember how you felt when you handed that in late, or remember how, I think it goes back to feeling too, because they want to feel good, and vice versa. So remember when you got that really good grade and what you did to get there, and we kind of go through that and say, remember how that felt, and that kind of motivates them to want to do those right things. So that's just another strategy you could use.
Yes, imagining the emotions of the future. It can help a student initiate or change behavior.
Beautiful, thank you. Just a couple of people have responded. Thank you so much. This is a great and informative webinar. Excellent. So I wanted to share that with you, as well as someone was sharing that they've been using pictures to support the families that they work with, as well as their own child who is now an adult. And this proves that it's a great strategy, and they want to thank you for the webinar. So I just want to thank everyone today for joining us. I want to thank Darcy and Carrie and the Palmyra-Macedon School District for doing this webinar with